This video is going to talk about page 4 of your orchestra book, and by that I mean this one right here. Turn to page 4, and we're going to look at line 2, 3, 4, and 5 of that page. All right? You can review all the terms at the top where it says the beat, a quarter note, a quarter rest, which means we are not playing for that portion, we are silent. Music staff, bar lines, and measures, some of which you probably already know. All right, we're going to skip past all of that, and we're just going to look at line number 2. It's titled, Let's Play Open D. The first thing we always do is we just say the letters, we say the music first, and then we are going to play it on our instruments, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is say it. So we're going to say, when it says D, we're going to say D. When we see the rest that goes like that, the quarter rest, as you can see at the top of the page, we just say rest, which means we're not going to play D there. Okay? So, say the notes on line 2 from the beginning all the way to the end. Ready? D, ready, start at the beginning, go. D, 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 rest. Next measure, D, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. Okay? Because it's telling us to play D, it's important that we go to playing position and we know which note is D. So go to playing position, starting with your shoulders relaxed, instrument on your shoulder, your nose is pointing towards your scroll. If you play violin, D is this right here, not farthest away from you, but this one right here. If you play viola, it's not the closest to your thumb, but this one. So viola, this is where you're playing D. Violin, this is where you are playing D, okay? So you pluck every time you say D. You don't when you say rest, all right? We're going to now say and pluck at the same time. Line number 2. 1, 2, do, both at the same time. D, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. D, 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 rest. If you made some mistakes, that's okay. I want you to run this video back and do it from the beginning again, but work on making absolutely 0 mistakes, because the stronger you are on these first few lines, the easier the harder lines will be. Okay? So if you did well, let's keep going. Look at line number 3. Go to rest position with your instrument underneath your right arm, flat up against you, left hand on the lower part of the shoulder. Line number 3, let's play open A. We're going to say A and rest. 1, 2, say A and rest. A, rest. Next measure. A, rest. A, rest. Now, if you feel more comfortable on these first run-throughs where we say it, if you feel more comfortable putting your fingers on each note as you say it, like A, rest, A, and so on, feel free to do that. Of course, you can't do that when you're playing it, but for the first time through, if you need to touch each note or rest, that's perfectly fine. Whatever helps you play it accurately. If you're ready to play it with the instrument, bring your instrument to playing position, right there on that shoulder. Right hand make an L, thumb on the side of the fingerboard. Find the A string. If you play viola, your A string is right here. If you play violin, it's not the E string, but the A string, all right? So, go to playing position with a good tall spine. Head is not bent. Let's play and say at the same time. Ready? 1, 2. A, ready, go. A, rest. A, rest. A, 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 rest. Again, like line 2, if line 3 is kind of stumping you a little bit and you need some extra practice, run this video back and do that as many times with me as you need to. But if you're ready, let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is unique because it combines both the D string and the A string and rests. So we have to do all 3 at the same time. So let's put our finger on the first note of this line and let's play. Let's say as we get to it, all right? Line number 4. So we're either going to say D or A or rest. Ready? 1, 2, number 4, two's a team, go. D, 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 rest. A, rest. D, D, A, D, 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 rest. Okay, now for this one, before we actually play it, let's practice going back and forth between the 2 strings. Okay, go to playing position, feet shoulder width apart, knees soft, spine is straight. Bring your instrument from Statue of Liberty down onto your shoulder. And remember, you need to know which string is your D string and which one is your A string. If you play viola, your D string is right here, your A string is here. If you play violin, your D string is here, your A string is here. So everybody's going to put their finger on the D string. And not what's in the book. Actually, let's play what's in the book, the 3rd measure. Okay, by the 3rd measure, I mean the 3rd part. So here is the first chunk. Then we have a bar line. Then the 2nd chunk. Then we have a bar line. So we're going to play this part right here. It's got 4 notes. D, D, A, A. We're going to play that. Okay? So your first letter we're going to play is D. Instrument set. Finding your D string. Play D, D. Switch your hand A, A. 1, 2, ready, 2 Ds, 2 As, go. D, again, D, switch, A, A. Let's do that 2 more times. Ready, start on D, go. D, D, switch, A, A. 1 more time. Ready, and D, go. D, D, switch, A, A. Now let's do it backwards. We're going to start with A, then D, D. Okay? Find out whichever string is A. Ready? 1, 2, A twice, then D twice. Go. A, D, D. 2 more times, and make sure you're saying A, D, D as we play it. A. 1, 2, say and play. A, go. A, D, D. All right, last time, just this portion. Ready, and say and play. A, D, D. Now back to our music. We're going to play, starting from line number 4, 1 chunk at a time, 1 measure at a time, starting with measure number 1. 1, 2, ready, number 4, go. D, 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 rest. Then the next part we move to the A string, closer to your thumb. 1 and 2, ready, measure 2, go. A. Then measure 3. We've already practiced this, so it should be pretty easy, but you got to concentrate. That's D, D, switch, A. 1, 2, keep it steady, ready, go. D, D, switch, A. And then the last measure is the same as the first measure. Ready, set, D, ready, go. D, D, D. Right. Now, if you're comfortable with that, let's play all the way through. But if you need a few more run-throughs, run the video back. All of line number 4 without stopping. Here we go. Set. set, double check that your head is not curved, that these fingers are tucked in. Don't let your fingers fly. 1 and 2. Start on D string. Ready, go. D, D, D. Rest, switch strings. A. Switch strings back, go. D, D. Quick switch. A. Switch back. D, D, D. One more time, beginning. Ready, set, open. D, ready, go. D, D, D. Switch strings. A. Switch back. D, D, D. Quick switch. D, D, D. Make sure you're saying it every time you play a string. You're always going to say it. That will help it stay in your mind. All right, the last line of this page is line number 5. At Perrault's door. That's how you say it. It's French. So, just like the other ones, we're going to start saying the letters first before we play it, but this one's kind of tricky. It doesn't have the rests in the same place that you're used to. So put your finger on the first note. Say it with me. Make sure you say it too. Ready, and say it, go. D, 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 A, D, rest, A, rest. D, D, A, D, A, D, rest. Okay? So this one's going to be a bit of a challenge. You have to really be able to find which string is D, which string is A, without looking at your strings, which I know can feel a little bit strange. But really, when you only have 4 strings to choose from, and they're fairly spread apart, you can do it. You just need to make sure you're practicing when? Only on the days you eat. All right, measure number 1 of line 5, just the first 4 notes. At Perrault's door. Make sure you're standing up tall. Ready? 1, 2, open D 3 times, then A. D, 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 switch A. Measure number 2. Make sure you're saying it as you play it. Measure 2, ready, go. And D, rest, A, rest. Measure number 3. Ready, go. D, D, D. Quick switch. A. Now the last measure, 2 quick switches in a row. Ready, go, and D. Quick switch. A. Switch back. D. All right. Now let's play the entire thing through. One time a little bit slow, and then the last time a little bit faster, right? This is the slow tempo. Tempo is the music word we use for speed. Ready? 1, 2, find the D string. Ready? D. D. Say it out loud. D. D. A. Next measure. D. Rest. A. Rest. Measure 3. D. D. A. D. A. D. If you need more practice on that, run it back a few seconds and play that again with me. If you're ready to go a little bit faster, let's go. Ready? 1 and 2 and ready. Open D. 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 A. D. Rest. A. Rest. D. D. A. D. A. D. All right, that's page 4.